Well, hey there, smart people. Your favorite Uncle Matt back with you. And today we're going to talk about an easy way to make hard decisions. Things like, what should my major course of study be? Or where should I attend college or university? Perhaps it's, should I take that job? Or what job should I take? Maybe I need to move. Where should I move to? Should I move to this city or that city? There's a lot of really important decisions that you have to make in life. Making good decisions is going to be one of the most important things in your life, and it'll have an impact for years or decades to come. Yet almost nobody has ever taken a class in how to make better decisions. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, there are two things that you need to avoid when you're making important decisions. The first one is trying to keep all the information in your head and not writing it down. And I'm going to talk about why that's so important to actually write the information down and get it out of your head. The second thing is trying to make decisions based on how you feel, your emotions. And so we're going to cover both of those two things, and then I'm going to give you a very systematic step-by-step method to being able to make better decisions that you can live with and that'll be more fulfilling to you. And I'll even tell you a story about how I use this in my own life. Now, today we are recuperating from having been hit with a major hurricane here in Florida. Now, thank God my home and my family didn't suffer any major problems, but we have been without power for a couple of days now. So it's a good thing I've got the battery on this camera all charged up. Now, you may be hearing some noise from the highway near here or my dog barking in the background, but we'll just have to live with any of those noises. Up there's my dog, Honey, barking right now. Somebody must be at the door. So first, let's talk about why it's so important to write things out and get the information out of your head onto a pad of paper. Here is a list of numbers. And if you were to add these up, this is a nice simple arithmetic problem. But it would be difficult to try and do it in your head. If we added multiplication and subtraction and division to it, it's still just arithmetic. There's a definite right and wrong answer. But writing it down makes it a lot easier to figure out what that answer is. But puzzling through your real life situations is not like arithmetic. It's much more complicated because you have so many different variables and you want to take them all into consideration. So that makes writing it out that much more important because there is no one right or wrong answer for the most part. There are shades of right and wrong answers for you in your situation. The second thing that you want to do is try to keep as much emotion out of your big decisions as possible. Think about it. Feelings, emotions really are very, very temporary things. How you feel about something today or this week is not how you feel about it next week or next month. Think back in your life. Think about, I don't know, music that you used to listen to 2 or 3 years ago compared to what you listen to now. Or think about foods that you used to eat or that you used to like a couple of years ago that maybe you no longer eat. Or perhaps you have some new food that you didn't used to eat that you really like now. So your moods, your feelings, your emotions will change. Remember, emotions are nothing more than chemical impulses that your brain is sending to the rest of your body. So yes, you want to pay some attention to your feelings, you want to pay some attention to your emotions, but that should not be the overriding decision-making process because your feelings will and do change. I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you for viewing this video on making better decisions. I also want to extend a very special thank you to Southern New Hampshire University for sponsoring this video. It's because of quality organizations like SNHU that I'm able to continue delivering content to you on my channel. If you are in the process of deciding where to get your degree, I'd like you to consider SNHU. It's a 100% online education with career-focused degrees. Whether you need a bachelor's degree to get into a career or you want a master's degree for advancement, SNHU has over 200 career-focused programs that are designed to give you the real-world experience employers are seeking. As a nonprofit university, they offer some of the most affordable online tuition you can find, and they're a fully accredited institution that's been focused on student success since way back in 1932. I know it's one thing to hear all this from me. It's also important to note that 96.5% of students surveyed across all their programs would recommend Southern New Hampshire University to a friend. You'll see the link for more information here and also in the description right below this video. I hope you click it and check them out for yourself. Now, let's go back to my house to learn the step-by-step system for making good decisions and to hear how I've applied these ideas in my own life. So let me show you a systematic process called the Ben Franklin. Now, you may have heard of the Ben Franklin approach to solving problems or making decisions. It's named after, obviously, Benjamin Franklin, the great American statesman and founding father. When he was faced with difficult decisions to make, what he would do is simply take a large sheet of paper, put a line down the center. On the left-hand side would write down all the pros. And then on the other side, all of the cons, all of the reasons against. When you take the time to write down a list of your pros and cons, it'll help you better get a grip on what's going on inside of your head. You'll be amazed at what comes out of your pen when you write it out. Now, if you want to type it up, that's great, but I find that writing things out connects with you more as a human being than simply sitting there typing it out. But whatever's easier for you, but I do recommend writing it. Now, there is one thing I want to add to this tried and true formula of listing your pros and your cons. Because at the end, you're going to have a list and the pros may be a lot longer and the cons may be a lot shorter and so on. We're going to take the Ben Franklin approach and we're going to supercharge it by weighing each of your pros and cons and coming up with totals at the bottom. Sometimes the reasons against doing something are so strong that it needs to have extra weight. We're going to give each one of these now a weight on a scale of 1 to 5. A 5 is something that as a pro is really important to you. And a 1 being, yeah, it's a pro, but it's not that big of a deal. The cons, you do the same thing. Now what you're going to do is you're going to add up not just how many pros and cons you have, but now you're going to add up the value. You will have a much better handle on what you really think and how you really feel about each one of these pros and cons in guiding you to make a good long-term decision. Let me show you how I used an idea like this in my own life. I'll show you my list in just a moment, but I want to give you a little preface. So I want to take you back to a time in my life when I was in my late 20s and I had some really important decisions to make. Here I was facing 30. I had already had some successes. I had already had some failures. I had already had enough experience with different kinds of jobs that I knew what aspects of work I liked and what things I didn't, things that I wanted to avoid. I was feeling a little bit burnt out in my life, and I knew that I didn't want to keep making mistakes. I wanted to find something that would really be fulfilling to me and that would help propel me into the next phase of my life. After doing my pros and cons, I came up with a list of really strong pros, and I want to show you what they looked like. So I knew sales is something that suited me and it could pay me and reward me really, really well. But I didn't want to have to travel. See, some of the sales jobs that I had, I traveled a lot. My first job out of college, I lived in, 5 or 6 different cities. I was constantly traveling for work, and it was expensive. And I didn't want to have a job where I had to keep coming out of pocket in order to be able to earn money. And then some of the jobs that I had, I was responsible for creating my own leads, or I had a cold call. So I didn't want that anymore. I wanted a job where people came to me. Also, I wanted a really generous commission structure, possibly with some sort of base pay or at least a draw against commission. I needed something that was going to be a good, solid launch pad for me. And then I didn't want to just sell any old thing. I wanted something I could believe in, something that I was proud to do, something that I felt was the proper use of the skills and talents that God had blessed me with. After really analyzing my list of priorities, I took a look at what industries I could go into that fit all of these criteria. Now, one of them I had already been in before. That was the health spa business. And I said, I've already worked in the health spa industry, loved it, had a great time being there, but I didn't want to live my life in reruns. I wanted the new action adventure series. And I said, well, what else do I believe in? Obviously, I believed a lot in exercise, but I also realized that I believed in education. And so I made the decision to look at career training schools. Back in those days, I got out the yellow pages. Sounds funny to talk about that now. So I made this list of all of the schools, marked down what their phone numbers were, a little bit of information about where they were located, and one at a time I called them up and introduced myself. Some of the people on the other end of the phone blew me off. They went, hey buddy, take a hike. Some of the people said, well, it sounds kind of interesting, but we don't have any openings available right now, but let's take your information and we'll get back to you in the case that changes. And then some people said, hey, why don't you come on in for an interview? Let's at least talk. One of the schools that said come on in for a talk was the School of Data Programming. They were in the computer training business. Now we're talking about 1979. Back then there were no computers in people's homes. IBM would not come out with their very first PC until August of '81. So this is a full 2 years before that. The world was operating on punch cards. Had an opportunity to meet the owner. He and I got along very well, but he told me that the job was straight commission and there was no draw, no base, and that violated one of the things that were on my list. At that time I said, listen, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Well, 2 days went by, and then on the third day he called me and he said, look, I really like you. I think that you'd be good at what we do here. Why don't you come on back in? And I went, I like what you're doing. Tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Give me a draw against commission for the first 2 months. If I don't cover the draw, you fire me, no problem. But I promise you, I'm really good at what I do, and I know I will blow you away with my results if you give me a chance. And he liked that. It was a sales job. I was selling myself. When I took over the job, it was for an admissions rep. He had 3 other people doing that job. Because I'm very organized in my approach to things, I outproduced all 3 of them put together. He fired them, promoted me, and I wound up not only managing that chain of schools, I helped expand it. We became the very first privately owned computer training school to be certified by the Data Processing Management Association and the Association of Systems Managers in the state of New Jersey. And that is where I began to teach all of these accelerated learning techniques, because I was looking to solve the dropout rate at my school. But that is a story for another time. So let's review what we've talked about so far. Number 1, do not keep all of the information inside your head when you're trying to make an important decision. Write it out. Make it as detailed as you can. Have your list of pros and cons. And then give each pro and con a weight. 1 to 5 is usually a pretty good measurement. Then add up what your scores are. You'll have a much better understanding of what's really important to you. Use your list of priorities and find what fits that criteria. By the way, I even used this process to find my wife. I didn't get married until I was 43, but that's a story for another video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I sure hope you do. If you're getting value from my videos, please make sure you give me a like. It lets the YouTube algorithm know to help spread the word. Share my videos with other people on your social media. I will look forward to seeing you on my future videos soon, and always remember that the fastest way to get to the top is to get off your bottom. Thanks for joining me.